Past years, I've often recorded some sort of rant for Father's Day. And then for 4th of July, I've made some sort of goofy, patriotic themed video, something silly. Well, this year for Father's Day, I didn't make a video. And this 4th of July, I don't have any goofy, patriotic video to put up. So I guess this 4th of July, you're going to get the rant video. Just a few days ago on June 29th, there was a tragic incident on Canfield Mountain near Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. There was a fire that started on the mountain, and when firefighters showed up to assess the fire, 3 of the firefighters were shot. Battalion Chief John Morrison and Battalion Chief Frank Harwood were both killed. A 3rd firefighter seriously injured and is still in critical condition as far as I know. For hours after this incident started, there was just chaos. This is a heavily wooded area. No one knew where the shooter was. If there was only one person shooting, the fire was burning out of control. They couldn't make any efforts to fight it because they didn't know where this person was. This is also a popular hiking area and recreation area, so there was an unknown number of people either hiking or biking or dirt biking up on trails on the mountain. From the second this incident started, the internet began buzzing. All of the usual people were making all of the usual accusations, and all of the usual conspiracy theories were flying around. The shooter hadn't even been located, let alone identified, but everyone was sure that whoever they didn't like was responsible. It was anti-government Trump supporters. It was anti-firefighter Nazis. It was Antifa. It was a trans person. It was a government conspiracy. It was the FBI. It was the CIA. It was a false flag operation to take away everyone's guns. It was a wacky environmentalist. It was ISIS. It was Iran. It was an ex-military fugitive from Washington State. Now, I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, and I have lived and worked in rural areas in this part of the country my entire life. Although I think people in North Idaho would prefer to call this the Inland Northwest or the Inland Empire instead of the Pacific Northwest, because they don't want to be lumped in with the cities on the West Coast. Regardless of that, I knew that none of these conspiracies or things that I was reading or hearing was even the slightest bit true. None of them sounded plausible. But with each conspiracy came some poorly edited or AI-generated images to support that theory or that story. And there were all of the people more than happy to share those stories around because it supported their preconceived idea of what must be happening. Now, the shooter's body was recovered late that afternoon, and there was a press conference the next day where they identified this person. Since he was identified, a lot more details have been found about him, including some of his social media and things that he posted or shared on different social media platforms. Also some information about his family and his life leading up to this. And in news that shocked absolutely nobody with more than a handful of brain cells, none of the conspiracies were true. Now, the internet will, of course, continue to blame their ideological and political enemies, and each new revelation, regardless of what it is, will be used by everyone to fuel their own opinion and their own perception of what happened and what the story must be. But there are a few details that I think are relevant, although they are details that are much less spicy and inflammatory than some of the social media posts. This person was a product of a broken family. He had divorced parents. He had allegedly been living with his mother and stepfather, and then a few years ago had moved back to Idaho to work for or live with his father and stepmother. It would appear that those relationships were not great. He was 20 years old, and it appears that he has been living in his car, even though he has family in the area. If you've watched any of my previous Father's Day videos, then you will know the statistics on the effects of fatherlessness on children. The effects of divorce on kids is not really much better, even if those divorces seem cordial and there are step parents involved on both sides. Children who are a product of broken families are twice as likely to commit crimes, twice as likely to end up incarcerated. They're between 2 to 4 times as likely to have some sort of mental health issues or substance abuse issues that will likely continue into adulthood. They're much more likely to drop out of school and much more likely to engage in antisocial or risk behaviors. There really is no positive benefit whatsoever for children who are the product of divorced homes, parents who are separated, or homes without fathers in them. So none of the revelations about this individual should really come as any surprise, and neither should any of the things that we see coming from his social media. Now, I don't say this to blame his parents or blame his family. This individual is solely to blame for his own actions. If there was any shared blame, it would be on our culture that has largely accepted and destigmatized fatherlessness and divorce, non-nuclear families, and antisocial and non-normative behaviors. There is perhaps some irony that this event happened at the end of June. June is Men's Mental Health Month. This is ridiculous if you really think about it. Now, I don't know if this individual ever had any type of mental health services, but anyone who has ever interacted with the mental health care system, if they're being honest, they could tell you that the vast majority of therapists and mental health providers don't have any idea how to engage men. And the vast majority of therapies and mental health practices are not meant for men. Ultimately, though, at the end of the day, the blame for this is not on the mental health care system or on this person's parents. It is on this individual. And through his actions, he's created 2 more fatherless families. I'm sure there will be more to this story. There's an ongoing investigation. There's a lot of things that no one knows. But ultimately, it's not going to change the fact that broken families and single-parent homes, particularly homes without a father, lead to disastrous outcomes for children. And those children carry those negative effects into adulthood. It's not a causation for things like this, but it is definitely a correlation. Feel free to leave any comments down below. I'm sure lots of people have lots of opinions. The internet certainly has tons of thoughts. I hope you all have a wonderful 4th of July. Stay safe. Don't light anything on fire. And I'll see you next time.